Few civilizations embody ruthlessness, resourcefulness and cunning quite as much as the Krait. Originating in the dark depths of the unending ocean, they were forced inland alongside such creatures as the quagons and largos when the deep sea dragon awoke. Now they stalk the shorelines, plundering, killing and enslaving. From Timberline Falls to Bloodside Coast, Krait spires loom on the horizon. No village or settlement that stands on the shoreline can avoid them, and all that encounter them tell tales of the terror in their wake. Kraits are formidable. They have no natural predators and are perfectly adapted to survival at the top of the food chain. Their streamlined bodies make them fast swimmers, and their strong tails carry them as swiftly over the land as through the water. Krait limbs are just as powerful as their tails, and their hands are equipped with both opposable thumbs and wicked curved claws. Krait employ their dexterity to fashion weapons and tools from scavenged metal and materials, creating deadly swords, spears and magical scepters that they use to hunt and defend their homes. They can remain submerged thanks to their highly adapted respiratory system. Krait do not have gills, they must store the oxygen they need by holding their breath. Their nostrils close automatically upon submersion as the cells expand with blood, and their lungs, which extend the length of their torsos, store enough air for hours of underwater swimming. If they need to stay submerged for longer periods of time, they can absorb oxygen through their skin via cutaneous respiration. Blood is moved away from the lungs and towards capillaries in the skin, which allows oxygen in the water to pass into the bloodstream. Cutaneous respiration is especially important when Krait dive, and could help explain their survival in the trenches of the unending ocean. Kraits have small forward-facing eyes, which suggest they have some degree of depth perception, but the strength of their vision is unconfirmed, as sight tends to become impaired underwater, especially in murky, dark conditions. It is more likely that Krait employ other senses to pinpoint their prey, such as by smell, or by sensing vibrations in the water. Whichever method they employ is sophisticated enough to ensnare even intelligent prey. Krait have been known to eat a wide range of creatures, from the timid quaggon to the stray human that wanders a little too close to their colony. Everything about the way the Krait hunt is calculated and designed to lure and trap their prey alive wherever possible. They fashion nets and swim with them strung out between them, ensnaring prey, or throw nets and spears to cripple and immobilize a foe before it can escape. Krait also fashion floating jars of bones and torn flesh. These idols secrete blood into the water, and the scent attracts carnivorous fish such as barracudas and sharks. Whether employed to weaken and injure foes, or scattered like a minefield around the villages of their prey, these deadly contraptions are only a facet of the ingenuity of these creatures. Not much of the Krait life cycle can be observed, as the colonies are far too aggressive towards outsiders. What is known is that Krait begin their lives as eggs. These are laid in hatcheries and guarded fiercely by the adults until they hatch. In their larval stage, Krait bodies are brittle, and the young must learn to swim and feed under the watchful eye of their guardians. As they grow older and stronger, adolescent Krait become the scouts for the colony, tracking and seeking new food sources or identifying viable habitats to invade. Both male and female Krait receive combat training at this stage, where they learn ruthlessness and hone their reflexes, resulting in some of the fastest, strongest fighters on Tyria. By the time they reach adulthood, Krait specialise into roles depending on their strengths. Some Krait become masters of weaponry in close combat, like the Nimros and Damos. Others employ magic to achieve their means, like these Hypnos. Sometimes this magic is similar to that of other races. Krait witches can be heard calling upon wind and rain to do their bidding. Other times, Krait employ their magic to control and confuse other creatures. Here in Caledon Forest, a Krait witch manipulated the Hylic Patli of the Zopatl Hylic to do her bidding. Patli's magic turned her kin into confused and disoriented animals, easy to herd, easy to capture, and easy to kill. An unusual and elaborate tactic, but nevertheless a deadly way to ensnare new prey. Krait colonies live in settlements called deeps. They range in size from single spires to towering structures that can be seen on the horizon. In the early days, these spires were constructed from the shipwrecks found in the Sea of Sorrows. The detritus left in the wake of Zhaitan's awakening made the perfect cover for the Krait as they moved inland. Nowadays, the Krait build their deeps from the structures they pillage and the villages they burn. Perhaps the most imposing of the deeps is in Mount Maelstrom. The water is latticed with precarious walkways. The slippery wood is suspended above and below the water by great chains. Entire ships are appended and hoisted up to form towering platforms from which Krait keep a close eye on the nearby settlements. Cages and tattered sails hang from the masts. The Krait have repurposed weapons scavenged from the wreckages, and both defend their homes and ensnare their prey with the hooks fired from these cannons. With the endless patrols of Krait along the perimeter and the sharp eyes of the lookouts above, nothing passes this colony without being seen. Other deeps are built into and around underwater cave systems, such as this one in Kessex Hills. The stone walls offer protection from intruders and make a convenient holding pen for the colony's slaves. All Krait colonies take captives, caging them in metal pens, chaining them to the scaffolding, or hanging them from the masts. They are kept to do all the menial tasks around the colony, such as maintaining the deeps, tilling and preparing land. Some may act as bait to encourage more unwitting prey to venture close. Slaves are fed on pieces of fish and other poultry scraps. Sometimes they are allowed to cook these meals on tiny campfires, teetering high above the cold water. These fires glitter in the darkness, a grim reminder to passers-by that they cross over Krait-infested territory. No matter their role, the fate of these slaves is ultimately death. They are either sacrificed or eaten. To the Krait, their slaves are nothing more than tools to be used and discarded. The practice of taking and using whatever and whoever they want is deeply entrenched within Krait society. It persists because of the closed nature of their communities and the emphasis the Krait place on their legends and religious teachings. These legends, passed between generations through word of mouth, posit that all creatures except the Krait are weak and unworthy. Even accomplished amphibian creatures such as the Hylic are terrorized by nearby colonies, and all too often end up imprisoned at the bottom of these lakes and rivers. Land dwellers in particular are to be shunned, as they were exiled from the seas and forbidden to return by the ancient Krait prophets many centuries ago. The prophets and their teachings form the basis for the Krait religion. They are said to have lived amongst the Kraits at the bottom of the unending ocean, bestowing great knowledge of many mystical things, but at some point the prophets left Tyria and ascended to a realm beyond this plane of existence, there to amass a great army and await a moment to strike. In the event that these prophets return, the Krait believe they will bring with them a great flood that will rush across the land and drown Tyria beneath the sea. All other species will be eradicated, leaving the Krait as the only inheritors of Tyria. Over the years, the Krait have sought to bring about this cataclysm. One of the ways in which they seek to serve their prophets is by the murder of slaves. Their bodies are sacrificed upon great altars beneath their spires. Each creature killed on these altars is believed to travel over into the mystic realm and join the prophets as soldiers for their army. These altars are the broken shards of great obelisks that once stood on the floor of the unending ocean. These obelisks cannot be seen on modern Tyria, but they were so imposing, constructed of eerily smooth and blemished stone, that they inspired reverence by their otherworldly presence. The Krait believed them to be monuments, erected to mark the places the prophets ascended into the mystic realm, but whether the obelisks in the unending ocean had ties to the prophets or not is ultimately unknown. Some historians theorize that their true purpose has been lost over the decades. Part of the reason for this may be the oral nature of Krait history, as Krait have never developed a written language. Instead, they memorize and recount the vast branching tales that make up the history of their race. Those Krait who train to become the priests of their society, committing all the doctrines and teachings of their faith to memory, are given the title Oratus, and become the leaders of Krait colonies. It is not uncommon for a priest or priestess to abuse their position for their own gain. The lessons they impart through their sermons are often warped and sullied by subtle amendments. Through these changes, the Oratus keep and expand their sway over the activities of the colony. But with each rendition, the truth regarding the obelisks moves further and further away. Another reason why so little is known about the Krait is because of their aversion to communicating with other races. but rare alliances have been formed, albeit under extraordinary circumstances. Around 1326 AE, the Sylvari Scarlet Briar managed to unite the Krait, and brought their might and cunning in line with the splinter faction of the Nightmare Court. Together they formed the Toxic Alliance. Scarlet was able to draw the attention of the Krait and elicit their cooperation by baiting them with access to more obelisk shards, playing off their belief that these artifacts were linked to their great profits. The Krait scrambled to help Scarlet in any way they could, believing these shards and Scarlet's plans might bring about the events foretold by their priests. They built the Tower of Nightmares above the Lake Viathan with great haste and efficiency, cutting down trees and scavenging materials from the destroyed town of Old Red Wharf, leaving much of the rolling green hills of Kessex barren and bare. Throughout the tower, shards appeared as altars, feeding the hallucinations with their power. The Orator Syax, a powerful and foreboding figure, galvanized the Krait's efforts of violence with his preaching, and became a guardian of this tower and all the secrets within. His fanaticism was centered on Scarlet's twisted, mutated creation, the Toxic Hybrid. Grown and birthed from an enormous glowing pod within the tower, and solace of the endless torment was an imposing, terrifying, Krait-like creature, sentient and ferocious. Those Krait in the Toxic Alliance naturally believed him to be a reincarnation of one of their prophets, but he was, ultimately, a Tyrian creation. Despite the devastation that the Tower of Nightmares and Scarlet wreaked across the land, it was not the cataclysm the Krait had anticipated. Now these nightmarish creations can only be encountered by travellers to the mists, their violent tales played out again and again as echoes in time. And modern-day Kraits wait, biding their time once again, some still tinged with the sickly green hue left in the wake of the toxic spores. Whether raiding settlements, working to appease their profits, or simply hunting for their next meal, Kraits are, above all else, survivors. They have adapted to life on the shoreline swiftly and without hesitation, quickly becoming the top of the food chain and beating any attempts to overthrow them with sheer vicious cunning and determined superiority. No matter what they encounter next, any opponent that seeks to challenge the Krait would do best to match their ferocity if they have any hope to succeed.